Go ahead, Premier.
Hi, everyone. Before taking your questions, I just want to say that we had a very productive cabinet meeting today. I also want to note that this was the first time in a long time that we had it in person. It speaks to the fact that this province is reopening and life is starting to get back to a little bit of normalcy. Later today, I'm heading up to Antigonish with Minister Delory to make an announcement on community solar gardens. You'll hear later how this will be a game changer for some communities in terms of our clean energy future. So I'll leave it there and I'll start to take your questions.
We'll take questions in the room and then we'll go to the phones.
Premier, do you think candidates should have to disclose their convictions? You know, you were asked about that yesterday by our colleague from Canadian Press. You said you were sort of taking that under advisement, but I didn't hear you answer whether you think that that would be appropriate. What do you think? Should you have to disclose?
Well, they are disclosed to the party and the party leader and I can only speak for the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, but it was certainly something that I disclosed, and I believe everyone should. But I also think people make mistakes, and that lessons can be learned, and that you should not let mistakes in your past define you.
Are you aware of any other members of your caucus who have a criminal record?
I am not aware, no.
Do you think that the public should know, though? I guess that was the question I did not phrase properly. Do you think the public should know about these convictions?
Well, in my example, much of my community knew. I grew up in Timberley and at the gas station, and many of my neighbors and friends had to drive me around for that embarrassing year that my license was suspended. And I think it's something that I learned from, and I do believe people deserve second chances. But in terms of running for public life, this office needs to be one that's respected, and that while you're an elected member, that you should lead with example. And the entire time that I've been an elected member, I believe I've been a responsible citizen, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Premier, have the events of this week delayed or changed the timeline for an election, though?
No, I continue to focus on the priorities that I've been talking about for the last few months. There are a number of initiatives that I wanted to partner with the federal government on where we have mutual priorities, and so some of those are still working through the process and very much focused on getting through the third phase right now.
I know you've been asked this question already, but you made this announcement in the interest of transparency and honesty with the Nova Scotia public, and yet you're not answering in a straightforward way all of the questions that journalists are asking. So how is it completely transparent and honest if you're only answering the questions that you choose to?
So I've laid out the facts and outcomes of court decisions, and it's a matter of the public record that I believe you have access to. Rehashing some of those facts is not going to change anything. I wish I could go back in time, but what I think is important is what I've learned, and I'm a different person today than I was in my early 20s, and I'm moving forward. I got into public life because I want to help people, and I'll continue to do my best to help people in Nova Scotia.
Before I leave this, I just want to ask you, you characterized the outcome as innocent. Do you regret that now in hindsight?
I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly reading what people are saying. The case was dismissed, so the court determined that I was not guilty.
But not innocent. This was the too cute by half part of this, I guess, for the public, which is, come on, whatever it wasn't innocent.
So I believe in a process, and I respect the court process in going through the facts, and at the end of the day, I was not guilty on that 2005 incident, but I'm not making any excuses for the unhealthy lifestyle that I led, and it was selfish, and I'll say for the third or fourth time, I'm very, very sorry of who I was at that time period in my life.
Did you fail the breathalyzer test that day?
So again, I've laid out the facts. You have access to that, I know, but I'm moving forward as I have over the last 18 years, and that's all I have to say, and you have the records.
I want to elaborate on your answer yesterday when I asked about long-term care and the Nova Scotians who say they've suffered irreparable physical and mental health, you said it's important to go beyond investing in staff, investing in infrastructure. But I want to ask again, how will you repair the harms to those individuals? When this pandemic is over, do they just go back to life with no further support from the government?
Well, I'm not an expert in the field of how to address those very serious issues, and some of them are likely unprecedented, being alone for a year and a half and not seeing your own family. We had to ensure that we kept them safe, and that's why we prioritized their vaccinations. So I'm willing to do what I need to do to ensure that that very serious issue is looked at the same time as making their living conditions more respectful for what they need around them.
Is there a specific COVID milestone that you're waiting for before calling an election? Or,
No. No.
Can you tell us when an election might be called?
No, I can't.
Premier, I try to get your party to answer this question. I haven't got an answer from them, so I'll ask you. You said Monday that you disclosed your impaired driving record to the Liberal Party during the leadership race. Who exactly did you disclose that to? And which incidents did you disclose? And who vetted that information?
I don't know the exact names. I dropped off the very comprehensive package of a number of questions on whether or not you had a criminal record. All of that was completely filled in. Subsequently, there is a very rigorous green light interview that was conducted virtually, where we went through the details of everything in my life beyond just interactions with police, like past education, past life experiences. And I did disclose that I both had a criminal record with the 2003 conviction, and that I had an interaction with the 2005 incident that was dismissed in court.
If that had been disclosed to members of the party, the delegates who voted, do you believe you'd be the Premier today?
That's not something I can answer. I can just hope that people can understand that human beings often make mistakes, especially at a young age. I'm not making an excuse. I had a decision to make if I would dwell in that or if I would learn from it. And I learned some very important lessons that has dire consequences. I've learned the impact of selfish decisions on families, embarrassing my own friends and family. But I'm a different person, and I'm proud to be the Premier of this province.
Just really quickly, as Minister of All-New Affairs, the Native Women's Association is asking for funding for a reconciliation centre. Will you consider that request?
Certainly we could consider that. Yeah, we'll look. I know that there's a federal program that they're interested in, so I'll be monitoring their progress on that file. I don't know of any certain capital program that we would have eligible, but certainly I would consider that, yeah.
Premier, what are the financial implications of the labour settlement with the healthcare workers? Can the province of Nova Scotia afford whatever it is that you signed on the eve of an election?
Certainly we believe it is a fair deal, and I'm not going to disclose that because I believe in the process. We didn't accept what they proposed initially, but I think there are certain professions that needed an increase, and they were heroes during the pandemic. And you'll see what I think is a fair deal, and one that respects our ability to pay.
We're going to go to the phones. We're going to go to CBC's Katie Hartai. Go ahead, Katie, with your question. Katie, are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. You'd think I'd know by now. Anyway, the head of MAD Canada wants to see you take legislative action against drunk driving. The premiers of Saskatchewan and BC have also come out about drunk driving charges, but have committed to do more to combat impaired driving. Are you planning on doing the same?
Well, I have reached out to MAD Canada. I've met with MAD Canada in the past in my constituency office, continue to support their efforts through their campaigns and their annual publications. Yes, I'll definitely look at what their priorities are and see whatever I can do to help and prevent people from getting behind the wheel when they shouldn't be.
Go ahead with your follow-up, Katie.
Yeah, until that happens, are you satisfied that an apology is good enough for Nova Scotians?
It's not good enough to just say that you made a mistake. I think you need to own up to bad decisions, and this was a decision that I made a long time ago. And I think you need to prove to people that you're a different person, and that's what I've been doing for the last 18 years. I've had a successful career in the private sector in different provinces. I came back home and started my own business and grew that, and then I put my name forward knowing full well that people could judge my past. But I care too much about this province to let those things hold me back from helping people.
Next, we're going to go to the Canadian Press. Michael McDonald.
Thank you. Premier, you've said a number of times that you disclose details of your record to the Liberal Party. That much is clear. I don't need you to repeat that again. Will you commit to requiring all members of your caucus to publicly disclose their criminal records before the next election? They did it in Saskatchewan last year. Why can't we do it here?
Yeah, I'm not against that as an idea. So I will think about that and look at what the process is and how Saskatchewan went through that. That's a fair question, and I will get back to you.
Go ahead with your follow-up, Michael.
Yesterday you said that alcohol was once a big part of your life. What did you mean by that, and do you still drink alcohol?
I meant that it was used more frequently than it should have. I did frequent bars till late at night, and I've since moved on, and I lead a professional career that I think is inappropriate to be intoxicated while you're working, and I certainly don't do that. I do enjoy a beer or two, going out to a pub, and I don't abuse alcohol. But I think it is important that people acknowledge that there are issues around alcohol and other drugs in our province and in the country, and I make no excuses. But I think in my early 20s, I drank too much.
Next, we'll move on to All Nova Scotia's Paul Bacon.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. In the past few weeks, your government's been very busy. It does not seem to have left much in the way of unfinished business. COVID cases are low. Is there some particular condition you're waiting for before you would call an election?
I think it's important we get through phase 3 and start to look at what's next for our province. And I'm getting really excited about what our vision is and how we take our province to the next level. We're doing extremely well managing the pandemic, and that's thanks to a strong public health team. Now we have to start thinking about how we recover jobs in this province and how we do that in a way that's more inclusive and more sustainable. So I'm going to continue to talk about that while at the same time recognizing some of the issues that have been elevated during the pandemic. And we've been doing that in the last little while. Housing was one of them. We need to pay more attention to long-term care. And so some of those projects have been taking some time, and I look forward to announcing those soon.
Go ahead with your follow-up, Paul.
Would you be comfortable having an election campaign during the state of emergency?
Well, the state of emergency, it needs to be in place for the foreseeable future, because there are certain restrictions that will need to be in place around our borders and ensuring that we have some protection for Nova Scotians. So it's I know the other two parties have started aggressively campaigning. We'll catch up and start campaigning when it's time.
We'll head back to the room for some more questions.
Premier, with regards to the economic recovery plan, I note that one of the recommendations is to emphasize an educational approach to inspections, no fine first inspections. That could be a dangerous precedent. Businesses being aware that the government's not going to fine them the first time around, and that inspections as a whole are being relaxed. Are you worried about that?
Not worried about that. It falls with the Premier's charter that was in place before my time, where education should be the first step before the enforcement. So we want to make sure that people aren't mistakenly violating something. It'd be a different story if they're blatantly doing something that would put health or safety in jeopardy of Nova Scotians. But I think that we should start with giving the benefit of the doubt to our small business operators that are trying to make ends meet. And I think an approach to start with an education piece is a prudent one that will help business.
Premier, your throne speech talked about program review, and we asked you quite a bit about that in the spring. I'm just wondering if you can tell us anything more about the timing of that, and when our Nova Scotians going to hear the details of that review.
Yeah, so it's a recovery review. We've now passed 6 years plus without a comprehensive review of discretionary spending. And so we are starting to look at terms of reference of that process. That will take some time. But it is about looking at what are the return on investments for those programs, and we expect to have that out in the next few months as we prepare for the next budget.
So, sorry, the next few months is when people will see what those terms of reference are?
Yeah.
You're in hindsight, if you went back to the time you were running for the leadership, would you have handled your disclosure about the impaired driving any differently?
I don't look back. I continuously look forward. I can't change the past. I'm an optimist by nature, and I'm optimistic about the province's future, and I look forward to continuously talking about my vision and how we need to help people in this province, bring them along with our economic success, make sure that we have clean air to breathe, and we have an earth that's worth living in, improving the relationship with the Mi'kmaq here and African Nova Scotians. Those are the things why I've started to run as an MLA to help my community, to help communities that have been left behind. I'm going to continue to do that as we prepare for the next election.
That's all the time we have questions for today. Thank you, Premier.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Okay, up next we have Minister Delory. I'm just going to do a little spray here. Oh, actually, Minister Delory's joining us by phone. Okay, Minister Delory, are you with us?
I am.
Okay, we're going to start with questions in the room, and then we have Katie Hartai, who's on the phone. You guys